Hello everybody. In this video I will be showing you how I painted red Corsair Chaos Space Marine. As usual, I start off with a base coat of Chaos Black from a rattle can. And then I went and made a mixture of 4 parts black, 1 part black grey and 1 part gold grey. And I applied this mixture through an airbrush in a zenithal manner on all the panels that I wanted to be black. Next, I made a mixture of 4 parts black, 2 parts black grey and 2 parts gold grey. And in a nearly straight down manner, just in a slight angle, I highlighted all the previously painted areas. If you accidentally mess it up, it's not that big of a deal. Then I made a mixture of, I made the same mixture and I just added 1 part white, so it was 4 parts black, 2 parts black grey, 2 parts gold grey and 1 part white. And I applied an edge highlight to all the armor panels that I wanted to be black in the end. You don't need to be super neat, just get that edge highlight on there. We will be working on the edge highlight in the coming steps anyway. So for the next step I added 2 parts white to this mixture, and I strengthened the edge highlight on the most visible areas. For the next stage, I decided to go with a wash made out of an oil paint. So I took lamp black and I'm going to thin this down with white spirit. So I put a little bit of white spirit in a cup, and then I mix in the black paint. And I do this until I get the consistency that I like. You can add a bit more paint if you want to, or a bit more spirit if you want to. Make sure to do this in a ventilated room. You can get a terrible headache from the white spirit. Then I wash all the black areas, but it's incredibly runny, this wash, so it will go everywhere. So you might just as well just wash the entire model. It doesn't really matter. Then I took gold gray, and as a final step on this blackish armor panels, I apply a sharp edge highlight to finish these parts off. Next I took dark flesh tone and I blocked in all the armor panels and all the areas that I wanted to be red. I did this in 2 thin coats. If you can see a little bit of the black shining through, that's not really a big deal. Then I took gory red and I went over the same areas again by blocking in this red, and if needed here as well, 2 coats. If you can see a little bit through the paint, it's not that big of a deal at this stage. Then I took Carberg Crimson and I washed all the red armor panels. This is to get shading in place, so that next to all the trims and edges there's a nice dark spot. Once that was dry, I took gory red and scarlet red and I made a 4:2 mixture, or a 2:1 mixture, just what you prefer. So let's say 2:1, and that's 2 parts gory red and 1 part scarlet red. And I paint this in on all the red parts avoiding the deep shaded areas, so staying away from the trims and edges like that. I then added scarlet red to the mixture to make it a 1:1 ratio mixture. So it's either 2:2 or 4:4. And I start reinforcing this previous color, but in a highlighting manner. So I paint towards the areas that are most visible from the outside of the model, painting towards the light. In this manner, I started building up the transition for the red tones. Next, I added scarlet red to get to a 1-part Corey red and 2-part scarlet red mixture, and I repeated this process, making sure and leaving little bits of the previous layers visible. So again, building towards the light. As you can see, slowly this red starts to build up. Once that has been applied, I went to a layer of pure scarlet red, and I repeated the same process again, but again in a smaller area, so that the color gradually becomes more red towards the light. And I always work visualizing the light from the top of the model down. That are the red parts for now. I then went on to paint the metallic parts. I used gunmetal and I just blocked all the metallic parts in. I went to a real simple approach for the metallics on this model. Normally I'll put in a bit more work, but there wasn't a lot of metallic on this model, so I figured just a layer of gunmetal followed by a wash of Nuln Oil, and then later on I'll finish it off with a bit of silver. But before the Nuln Oil, I took the anthracite grey and I painted the bolter casing with it. Then I took the Nuln Oil and I washed all the metallic parts and the bolter casing. So just the entire bolter or bolt pistol, got a wash of Nuln Oil. Once the Nuln Oil has dried, I took silver and I highlighted all the metallic parts with silver. Where possible, I'll dry brush it, for example on those cables on the backpack and the knees, and if not possible, I'll just gradually paint it on in a thin line, just in the same manner as you would apply an edge highlight. Next I took anthracite grey again and I applied a rough highlight to the bolter casing. Just on the top of the bolt pistol I just paint a fairly thick edge, just so it's there. It's not really well visible on the video. Then I made a mixture of 2 parts anthracite grey and 1 part dead white, and I applied this as edge highlight to the bolter casing. Then I started working on the golden parts on the model, and I used Viking gold as a base for the golden parts. Be careful not to hit any already painted areas. Since I used Hearn Blackheart as the inspiration, a lot of the backpack turned gold as well. I really liked the look of him, and I wanted to do the model in his style. I'm not sure if all red Corsairs have the gold on the backpack, but I liked it so much that I decided to give this model that look. So I then took Agrax Earthshade and washed all the golden parts with it. Once that's dry, I took Victorian brass and I applied a highlight to all the golden parts. As you can see, I make sure I leave the recesses alone to keep that nice, strong, dark tone alive. Then I used Reichland Flash Shade and washed all the gold. I wanted to achieve a nice warm effect to the gold, instead of the more gold-like that you'll achieve when you, for example, wash with sepia. But once this was dry, I didn't really like the effect. It toned the gold too far down in for my taste. Whilst I was thinking how to fix that, I used earth and I painted in all the bones, horns, such on the model. Once that's dry, I washed them with Agrax Earthshade to get the deepest recesses nice and dark. So I decided to go back with the Victorian brass and highlight the gold one more time to get a bit more of a shine effect on the gold, so that I liked it a bit better. And as you can see, I just apply this in a highlighting manner. Don't go over everything again. I want to leave a little bit of the flash shade visible, so get a bit more color transition there and a bit more effects in the gold. I felt the same thing about the red, so I made a mixture of 4 parts scarlet red and 1 part white, and I applied an edge highlight on a couple of areas, just where I felt it was needed, where the light would fall on the model, so the shoulder pads, the head, a couple of areas on the legs on the outside. Just got a little subtle edge highlight. And those little edge highlights, in my opinion, really brought the model to life. So I went back to earth and I highlighted all the horns and bone parts on the model. I make sure I stay away from the deepest recesses in this stage, so that I don't have to reapply any washes or shades again. Next I took khaki and I start building up the bone color. I make sure I leave the previous layer a little bit visible towards the deeper and bottom parts of this of the bone parts and horns. And this is then followed by a final highlight of bone white, following the same principle, but now leaving a little bit of the khaki visible. I used thick green to block in the little wire on the helmet of the Marine. Wanted a nice contrasting color. As a main color, I do this on the top of the wire and on the side of the wire. So if you look at it from the front, you see the thick green, and from the top as well now. And then I used livery green, and I applied this as a highlight, and I only did the top of the wire, so that if you move the model, the color actually changes to a bit darker color. Then I went and took stormy blue, and I painted in the eyes. I carefully painted in the eyes, and this situation didn't want any glow effects, so I wanted my highlights to be clearly visible. Since this is a reason why I used the pure color for the final highlight on the black, so I don't have to go back and make all sorts of mixtures in case I mess up. Then I used electric blue, and I painted in a little dot, more like in the front of the eye. Using white, I did the same, but in the outer end of the eye, toward hitting the edge of the electric blue. To finish the eye off, I gave it a quick glaze with Gilliman blue, and that actually finishes up this model. So I painted the base and put some tufts on there, and this is the end result. So I hope you liked this video. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to. If you didn't like the video, that's okay too. You can dislike it, but please be kind enough to let me know what you didn't like about the video. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye bye.